Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Okay, let's close this tab. Okay, let me just open the live chat here. Just give me a second. Yep, here we are. Okay. Yes. So, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sneha. Good evening, Jayesh. Good evening, Duck, Angel. Good evening, Priyanka. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. So, uh, a very warm welcome to you on day 4 of the C++ bootcamp. Right. So, I hope we all are on track, right? From all the topics we have covered till day 3, right? So yesterday we covered a really important topic called as oops, right? I hope everyone watched yesterday's recording and watched yesterday's live, and if not live, you must have watched the recordings as well, right? So that being said, we'll move to today's session. So today we'll be starting off with the write and read operations in C++, right? So let me just cross these tabs out. Yeah. Okay. So let's start with today's topic with a very interesting topic. To be honest, like this topic is used in situations where the program file is too large, or you have to interact with with other files, right? And as said, the topic name is working with files. By the way, I hope my screen is visible and I'm audible and visible to you guys. Everyone, please confirm in the chat box my screen, my face, and my voice. Yes, Amandeep, we'll do that. Vectors we are going to cover today. Vectors, maps, sets, these are all planned for today. Yes, audible and visible. All right. Awesome. Okay. So, you have a file, let's suppose, right? You have a file. This is your header file, and let's suppose you're writing. Okay. Let's suppose you're writing your code here, okay, and this is int main, right? And you have written some bits and pieces of code, right? Now, let's suppose in this code you have to interact with an external file, right? Let's suppose that file contains maybe your password, your hash keyword, right? It could contain your private stuff that you don't want to share in the program, right? So in that case, you have an external file. C++ gives you an option to have an external file which can be used in the program, right? Which can be used in the program. So you can read the files. You can read the files from an external source. You can also write something in the external file using these operations. Read and write, right? Now let's see a demo how to do that. How to do that, right? So first thing first, what I'll do here is I'll just open my VS Code. Okay, this was yesterday. So I'll make a new file today. I'll call it day 4. Sorry. And by the way, I'll share you all these code that I'm writing here, I'll upload these code files on GitHub and I'll share you the GitHub link. Okay, so don't worry about that. Day4.c++, and I'll quickly write the header files. Are you okay? Now, to work with files, you have something. Okay, so one important thing I need to tell you here is that, as we all know, right? We all know what header files are, right? We know what header files are. Anyone who like to tell me what header files are? Yeah. What are header files? Anyone? What are header files? Anyone? What are header files? We did this on day one itself. Let's see who all are revising the concept and who all are just coming like that. Yes. That is the header file that we use for it. But I have a general question, right? What is a header file? So Khushi, an external file is a file which is not in your program. So any file that is outside your program, we call it an external file. That's it. Yeah, hashtag include. But see, yeah, obviously, I mean that's the syntax for it. But header files are those files which have predefined functions, exactly said by Angel, Dark Angel 05. I mean, just come with the name, right? anyway, so right, header files are those files which are predefined functions. You can just consider them like classes, right? So if I include iostream.h, remember we use iostream.h. If I come here, we have included iostream.h, right? So what is the use of this header file? It contains the functionality of C in and C out. Have you ever wondered, by the way, like we use C out, right? We use C out, and once we do C out with some text in it, it prints the result to us, right? It prints the result to us. So have you ever wondered where is the functionality written? I mean, obviously, like there must be someone who must have written this functionality of how do we print, right? So this functionality is present in this file iostream. Similarly, there are multiple files. If you want to work with strings, there is a header file called as hashtag include strings. Now, what will this do? So remember, we did string functions. We did dot size, right? We did what all functions did we do yesterday? Strings. We did dot size. We did dot concat, I think, right? And many more functions. So all these functions are included in this header file called as string. If you want to use these functions without including this header file, you'll get a compilation error, as simple as that. Right. So for each and everything you have to include a header file, right? So if you want to include vectors are again a data structure that we'll be covering today. If you want to include maps, you have to include hashtag include map, hashtag include set. All these things you have to include, right? But C++, what they have done is they have given you a common file, in which that common file, we have a common file, or I'd say a common header file. Anyone who'd like to say, who knows what that common header file is, which contain all the functionalities and all the functions? So we have a common header file, right? And that file is anyone in the chat box? That file is bits file. Bits hashtag include bits /stdc.h. Now this file contains your strings, it contains your map, it contains your vector, and each and every header file that could possibly there in C++ comes under this file. It is only made for one single purpose, that you don't have to individually include separate header files for separate data structures or data types, as simple as that. So instead of remembering all the header files, you just remember this, that bits /stdc .h is a header file which contains all the functions, all the predefined functions in it. Okay, is it clear? So if you want to include header file, the header file for having the read and write functionality is hashtag include fstream.h, right? Or fstream you can call it. But let's do one thing. Let's act clever. Let's include the bits file, because bits file can contain all the files, right? So I'll say hashtag include bits/stdt.h. Okay, right? Acha. So now what will I do? Let's suppose I have a string st, and this string, let's suppose I'm naming it let's upgrade. Let's upgrade. Okay. Now what do I want here is, let's suppose I make an external file. Okay, and let's suppose I want to name it sample.txt. Sample.txt. Right. Now after this, so what I've done till now is I've made an external file, right? So that I can write something onto it. I just want to show you a demo. That's it. Right. After this, but there is a function called as offstream. So if you write offstream, right, and if you want to output something onto the file, you use something called as out, right? And which file you want to output? You want to output in which file? In sample.txt. In sample.txt, right? So, and in order to print the result, you don't use cout here. You use out and est. Now see, I'll show you magic. So this is empty right now, right? I'll run the code. I'll run the code, right? Okay, I see no errors, right? Now let me go to sample.txt. Now once I go to sample.txt, you see the text, and that this is the same text which is let's upgrade, that is coming from this string. So what I have done, in short, I'm able to transfer my text, right? I'm able to transfer my text from the main code to the external file. Getting it? Transfer my file or my text file, or maybe it can be a string, it can be any password or any sensitive information that I want to send somewhere else. That's how we do it. Getting it? Now similarly for input, let me take another string. I'll say string st2, right? And I want that whatever I write into the string, right, or whatever is there, let's suppose I make another file. Let me name it sample2, sample2.txt, right? And this sample.txt, I'll write this is coming from sample2.txt, right? And I'll come to the main code. Now what I've done here is I've created a new text file that is sample2, that is by the name of sample2.txt. Now I will try to read the text that is written in sample2.txt, that is an external file, into my code, right? Just like you have outstream, offstream here. If you want to read something from external file, you have something called as if stream. You'll use if stream. And here you want to input, right? You want to get the input from another file. You'll use in. Just like we use out here, we'll use in here. And from which file you want to get it? You want to get it from sample2.txt, right? And once you have that, you'll just write in, because you want to get the input, right? Here is out, now it's in, and input ht2. As simple as that. Acha. Once I do this, you'll see a very strange output. Right? So let me run this file. I run this, and I get nothing for some reason. Let me see. This is okay. Got it. clear the screen and let me run the code again. Okay, let me try the getLine function. I'll say getLine. I'll tell you what is the meaning of getLine here. In and ST2. Oh, my bad. See out ST. Okay, see here. Uh, see, this is clear, right? The outstream is clear. Now comes the chance of in-stream. Now in-stream, if you want to input a data that is not there in your file, right? That is there in the external file, right? Now what will happen is, obviously you want to fetch something that is written in the external file. You use fstream, the name of the file, then you input that file. Once we have that input from the file, you just have to print it. Now if you're printing it, you're only getting this. As you can see, you're only getting this. But why is that? In sample2.txt, this is the whole sentence. This is coming from sample2.txt. But in the output, we only get this. The rest of the sentence is missing, right? Any reasons why is that? Anyone? What could be the reason for this missing thing? Huh? So I'll tell you. If you use in function, right, it'll by default only take the first character. If the first, not the character, the first word, whatever that first word is. But if you want to input the whole line, use something called as getLine. Use getLine, that will get you the whole line. Use input and STL. Now this time if I run it, see out ST2. Let me clear the console. Okay. Now this time, if you see, you get the whole text, right? So what was happening when we were just using in, we're only getting a single word, the first word that is. But if we are using getLine, we're getting the whole sentence as it is, right? So that's how you can read as well as you can write something. This was writing. You're writing some text into the external file, and this is you're reading some text from the external file, right? As simple as that. Okay, sure. Cool. Now with this topic, now let's move to something called as STL. Right? STL. See, in simple terms, STL is nothing but again some pre-built functions or predefined functions. The full form of STL is standard template library. Right? And this is nothing. This is just what we were doing right now. These are nothing but predefined functions included in a data structure. Predefined functions used in a data structure. Right? Once we do it with an example, it will make much more sense to you. Right? So, the first STL that we are going to cover today is nothing but a vector. Okay. Now, before coming to vector, I have a question. Right? That is, we all know what arrays are. Anyone? We all know what arrays are. Yes or no in the chat box. We all know what arrays are. Anyone in the chat box who doesn't know what arrays are? We all know, right? Just let me know yes or no in the chat box. Yes, right? Yes, Jayesh. Yes, Amandeep. Anyone else? Yeah, we all know that, right? Acha. So one thing that comes in mind is if we want to declare an array, right, we do it like this: int arr, and then we declare the size. And by this, what happens is there is a fixed size of 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is a fixed size of 5 that is allocated to the memory. And to be exact, to be specific, to the static memory. Or I can say a stack memory. Now, we all know what stack memory is. Right? We all know what stack memory is. Stack memory. But let's suppose now what happens is we have an array. Initially, our use was only till 5 size. But later on I see that okay, now what happens? My suddenly uh, my uh, my project, right? It demands the array size to be increased to 15. But if we were using an array, if we have declared an array once, we cannot exceed its size. अगर आपने एक बार 5 size का array declare कर दिया, we cannot extend the size further. That means this size is static in nature. Once declared, the size will stay as it is. Yeah, obviously, an array is a homogeneous mixture which stores similar types of data in a continuous format. Right? So this was the drawback of using an array. The drawback was once we have declared an array of a particular size, we cannot increase the size. And to counter this drawback, we had introduced vector. Right? We had introduced vector. Now, what vectors are? Vectors behave the same way as arrays, but dynamic in nature. Right? Dynamic in nature. Now, with this, as I told you, vectors are arrays plus dynamic in nature with a very strong capabilities of good user defined methods. It has methods to directly get you started with. If you want to, just by using a method, let's suppose I have this number 81063. Just by using a sort method, you can sort these numbers. That is 01368. You can sort, you can resize, you can find the length, you can delete, you can push, and that too with dynamic in nature. So now let's get to the code implementation part. So what I'll do here is I'll comment this out. So as I've already included the bits file, I not need to include a specific header file. By the way, if you want to, if we were not using this bits file, we had to include the header file of vectors, and that is hashtag include vector. Okay? Hashtag include vector. Now, after this, we have to declare a vector. Now, the syntax for declaring a vector is you type in a vector, then inside that vector, which data type you want to store. It can be a boolean value, it can be an integer, it can be a character, and what. So I let's suppose only want the integer value, and then will come the name. the name of the, let's suppose I want to name it V1, right? Acha. Now, if you want to push the value, so this is a memory that has been allocated to V1, which is dynamic in nature. If you want to push some values, you'll use V1 dot push underscore back 10. If you want to push another value, you use V1 dot push underscore back 20. Now what will happen is, see, by pushback, let's suppose you have declared a vector V1. If you are using pushback, so what will this do? It will create a size. It will push, let's suppose 10. Then you use pushback 20. It will increase the size. It will create 20. Now, there's a whole phenomena involved. There's a whole phenomenon involved of how the sizing works. How do we increase the sizing? We're not getting into that much of depth, but for now, you just need to know that it is dynamic in nature and it has the capability to increase the size. So that, and if you go into depth, there's something like it has a fixed size initially. If you want to add more, it doubles the size sometimes, right? It doubles the size and it pushes the value in it. But we're not going to that much of depth right now, right? We just need to know the basics, so that is enough for you. Okay. So whenever you use pushback, it will be pushed at the end, at the last index. Now there's something called as pop back. Right? Pop back, as the name suggests, it will pop it out. So let me try it. Let me give you some good examples. I'll say v1 dot push underscore back 20. What I'll do, I'll just copy these. I'll paste it. Okay. Now, I'll run a loop so that I can print each and every value. I'll run a loop for int I equals 0, I less than. So in order to find the size, you can just use dot size method, right? So you use it as v1 dot size I plus plus. I'll say cout v1 of I, and I'll also use endl after each and every line. Endl. Okay. Now let me run it for you. Once I run it, see, we get 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30. Or let me not write endl so that it gets into a single line. Let me just fill this again. Okay. See, we get the result, or let me do one thing. Let me just put some spaces in between. I'll again clear out the console. I'll again run the output. Okay, now we get the output, right? Let's suppose I want to pop the value. So if I do v1 dot pop underscore back, and let's suppose if I do it 2 times, right? So the last 2 values from the right side would be deleted. So in this case, 20 and 30 would be deleted. Let's see. See, as you can see, the last 2 values, because I've written pop back 2 times, these values have been deleted, right? Similarly, there's also a way to sort an array. So this is not sorted. We have 10, 20, 30, then we again have 10, 20, 30. So in order to sort it in ascending order, you have something called as sort. You can apply something called as sort. Then the name from where to where. So I'll sort it from begin to the end. Right now, if I run the answer to the code, see, I get the vector in a sorted format. Right? So how cool is that? I mean, we have access to lot many methods in vectors than we have it in arrays. Right? So again, go through vectors, go through the documentation, official documentation, or any link. Right? You'll find ample number of methods. Just try to use those methods in the vectors. Just try to practice and you get that. It's just a just a matter of implementing it. I mean, there are n number of methods. I've done the most important ones: how to push, delete, how to sort it. There's a way. There's even a method to clear it out. So if you want to delete your vector in just a single line, you just say v1 dot clear. So this will delete all the values in the vector. So if I now run it, see, I get no output. I get no output. That simply means that I have deleted all of my vector. Clear? So is vector clear to all of you? Why do we use vector? The reason for using vector over arrays is, I hope it's clear to you, right? That is sizing. We cannot increase the size in arrays, but in vectors it is dynamic in nature. Right? Getting it? Anyone? Any issues? I have a doubt. Like, what is the difference between vector and Chinmay, say no difference as such. So in structures, in classes, you can also add data members, right? It's up to you. Similarly, in vectors also we can add. So the term dynamic here is general, right? Dynamic means it is flexible. You have the capability of extending its size as per me. That is dynamic in nature, right? You can also say flexible. If something is dynamic, something is flexible, it has the tendency to increase, contract, or reduce its size or increase its size there and there. Okay. Any issues, anyone? No issues, no sir. No, sir. Anyone else? Any doubts? All right. Now let's move to another STL, and that is a map. Okay. Now, mark my words, right? Map is the most widely used data structure in C++. Not sure about Java, not sure about Python, but map is the most important used data structure that we use very often to solve coding questions in C++. In fact, there is a very famous engineering joke, and I hope you guys have heard it or not. I'm not sure. Famous joke, and that is, they say that if you're not able to think of any logic, let's suppose you are sitting in an interview, or you are practicing some contest, you are attending an interview, you have a question in front of you, you're not able to think of a solution. Just close your eyes, think about map, how can you use map in that, and I'm not guaranteeing 100%, but there is 60-70% chance that question can be solved using a map structure, right? So that is just to give you the importance of what is a map, right? Don't take these numbers seriously, just to interest you what maps are. And as I'm telling you, this is very much used, right? So aisa hai kya? What is that map, right? What is map here? So map is a structure that stores key and value pairs. Key and value pairs. Yeah, Gaurish Dixit, I'll do that. So what do I mean by key and value pair? Let's suppose I'm an admin, database administrator of a school or a college. I want to enter marks of students, right? So let's suppose we have student A, we have student B, we have student C, right? And now my main task is to get store each mark with the corresponding name of the student. Okay. Now see, if we have an array, right, we only have the indexes, right? If I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and if I store marks here, let's suppose 0 gets 100 marks, 1 gets 98 marks, and so on. The thing is, I'll not be able to figure out what is the student name here. Obviously, I can do some jugaad, that we call it, to map it with some student name, but that will be too much hectic. So to tackle this problem, we have something called as a map. Map says that, okay, what I'll do is I'll store value in pairs. If you're storing marks, I'll say, okay, so let's suppose Ritik has got 99 marks. I'll give myself 4 marks. Okay. Let's suppose there's some person called as Dinesh who gets 58 marks. There's someone called as Sam who gets 2 marks. Don't be shocked, people get 2 marks. Okay. Right. So now I have the structure, right? If I want to refer to Dinesh marks, I'll get to Dinesh, I'll get to his marks. Similarly, if I want Sam's marks, I'll go to Sam, I'll fetch the marks. That means that I'm by name and by a pair. We have a pair, the two values, and this consists of a single pair. We can store things. Right? So let's actually see how can we practically implement it. Okay, so now what I will do here is, let me make a new, not a new file. Let me comment these only. Okay, so vector, I'll comment this out. Now, to declare a map, you need two things. First is the header file, then the syntax. The header file, since we have already included bits, we don't need a header file. If you want to, the header file is hashtag include map. You can use if you want to, but since we already are using bits file, so I'll just comment it out. Now, declare a map. You have to use map keyword. Right now, I told you, right? It has a key and a value. Now you have to specify what will be the data types of both the things. Let's suppose the key I want as a string, because I want to store names, right? Name can be stored in a string format, so I'll write string. And the value, let's suppose I want to store the marks. The value will be int. Then I give the name of the map. Now it's very simple. Now I'll say, okay, go to MP of Ritik and just assign me 98 marks. Go to MP of Dinesh, just assign 58 marks. Go to MP of Sam and assign 2 marks. Now, if you want to compare it with an array, this can be considered as an index. Why I'm saying that? Because you have an index, Ritik. You have index called as Dinesh. You have index called as Sam. Right? You have marks here 98, 59, and 2. Right? Acha. Now, if I want to get, let's suppose in future, I want to get Sam's mark. So it's as simple as that. I'll just say cout MP of Sam. Now, let me increase the size. Yeah. If I run the code, right, and Sam has got 2 marks, right, directly by the name, I'm going to fetch the marks. Achha. Now, interestingly, If you want to loop, you cannot just loop just like you do it in a vector, because it cannot loop, right? How will you recognize that? Which, because there are no indexes, right? There are no indexes. You cannot loop from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 index. So there's something called as an iterator, right? So what will you do? You will have to set up an iterator. I'll say set up an iterator which will iterate to in my map. I'll say my map contains string as the key and int as the value. Now a double scope resolutor operator, and you give the keyword called as iterator, and then the name of the iterator. I'll give it ITR. Done. Now you can loop. So now I'll say for. Acha. ITR will not start from 0 as I told you, because there's no index as such. So you will say start from the beginning. I'll say map.begin. Jahan se begin ho raha hai, just start it from the beginning, right? And the ending condition would be, or the terminating condition would be, jab tak we are not getting the ending, we do not get to the end of the map. I'll say ITR not equals to mp dot end, and on each iteration just increase my iteration. I'll say ITR plus plus, and I'll say cout. Now there are two values, right? There are two values. One is the key, one is the index. So key is represented by the first value, and the whatever value that has inside a key, it is represented by the second value. So I'll say ITR with a pointer, because it is a pointer, right? So this iterator is a pointer. Just remember that. So if you're pointing to a pointer or memory address, you have to use a pointer here, right? And I told you, right, the first variable. So this is first, itr dot first, then I'll have a space maybe, and then I'll print out itr dot second, and we are done. And also let me print endl, because to not confuse, and we are done. Let me clear the console out, and let me wait. Okay, so you're not included a pointer here. I'll include a pointer ITR. Okay. See, and now we can see we are getting the result. Right? We are getting the result. So this is a map for you. Right? Dinesh has 52, Sam has Ritik has 98, and it is this. Why are we getting a 2 here? I'm not sure. यहाँ पे 2 क्यों आ रहा है दिनेश के पास? I'm printing something else also. अच्छा, ये मैंने Sam, I printed Sam's marks, right? That's why. Okay. So now Dinesh 58, Ritik 98, and Sam. Right. Anyone? Any doubts in the map structure? What is map used for? It is used for storing key and value pairs. Right. How to iterate on a map? You have to use an iterator, starting from beginning till the end. The first value is the key, that is Dinesh, the string name. The second value is the value that is present at that particular time. Right? Anyone? Any doubts? Yes or no in the chat box? Any issues? Come on, any issues? Yes or no? No, right? Clear? What about others? Jay says no. Okay. What about others? Any doubts? I use iterator. What iterator? What do you, sorry, any doubts in the iterator part? Clear, sir. Okay. No doubts. Awesome. Okay. See, I use an iterator. See, why are we using a specific iterator here? Why are we specifically using an iterator here? Because see, what you have an array. In array, you have indexes, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. So it becomes a lot easier for you to iterate because you can just iterate from the 0th index till the size, right? But in a map, right? In a map, you cannot, you not, it is not compulsory to have an integer index or the key. Okay. So in this, in a map case, you have Ritik, you have Dinesh, you have Sam, right? So how will you loop around? Obviously, you cannot say from I equals to 0 because there is no 0 index here. This is by the name of Ritik, right? So for this, we have to have an iterator. Iterator is nothing but just, it can be considered just as a pointer that will point to the beginning, right? This will be the beginning, this will be the end. So what are you doing here is you're having an iterator, you're setting up an iterator. This is the syntax of an iterator. Iterator for a map which has string and integer as the key and value, and then the name of the iterator. Then you start it from the beginning. You say start my iterator from the beginning. So now this will point at the beginning. That is this part, and till the end. Iterate when, कब तक iterate करना है? On the condition till when my iterator is not pointing towards the end. That means जब तक यहाँ तक वो point नहीं करेगा, keep on iterating in the middle. And on each iteration, I'm increasing the iterator count. Now this ITR has two values, right? This is considered as the first value, and this is considered as the second value, right? So now I'm printing first. That means I'm printing Ritik first. Then I'm having some space, then the marks. Let's suppose 98, and Dinesh, and so on and so forth. That's how we use an iterator. Just because we don't have any indexes here. Clear? Any doubts, anyone? Clear, right? Who was that? I think Shubham and Ayush. Yes, sir, you are. Array, amazing. Okay, thanks for the compliment, man. Okay, so that's how we do it. Okay. Now, with that, let's come to the final STL for today, and that is a set. Okay. I'll not burden you. We've already done map, already done vector. This is the last one. That is set. Okay. Now, in set, you can consider it same as an array only, but this is also dynamic. Right? This is also dynamic, but it does not have key value here. Now, confusing, right? Array भी नहीं है, vector भी नहीं है फिर तो, और hash map तो बिल्कुल नहीं, because hash map has a key and a value pair. Then, but it can be a vector, right? It can be a vector because I told you vector is array plus dynamic in size. But what if I tell you it is not even a vector? How is it different from a vector? In set, if you're using a set, one most important property of a set is that you can only store unique values. You can only store unique values. right? Let's suppose I enter 1, I enter 2, I enter 3, and again I enter 1. Now it will check that I'm trying to enter 1 here, but 1 has already been entered already. So this time I will skip this. I'll not add 1. Next I want to add 4. Next I want to add 5. Then again I want to add 2. This will not let me add 2 because 2 has already been added in my set. Right. That is what set is. Nothing rocket science. I'll not make it more complicated. That is what set is. Only storing unique values. But in case of vector, you can store multiple values. Right? You can store duplicate values you want to. I think you even saw an example. We were storing 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30 again and again, and it was getting stored. But not in case of a set. Set will not help you store multiple values. Right? So, again, how to use a set? Very simple. So I'll just comment all of this, and for including a set, you can use a header file called as hashtag include set, or you can use this as well. This is common for all. Now I'll declare a set. How to declare a set? I'll say set, then the data type which I want to enter. I want to enter int. I'll say int, and then I'll say st. The name of the set I want to give it st. Achha. As I to insert value in set, in vector you had something called as pushback, the method name, but here the method name is insert. Don't worry, so you don't have to memorize these methods name, to be honest. Once you practice good number of questions, it will just come to you by default to your brain, right? That's what was the case in my that was the case in my when I was doing it. Actually. Don't memorize these. Pushback कहाँ पे use होगा, insert कहाँ पे use होगा, you will just get that because stack करोगे, stack के अंदर भी होता है push, queue के अंदर भी push होता है, तो don't get confused. The more question practice you do, the better it will be at it. Okay. Now, I'll say st.insert 10, then I'll insert 20, then I'll insert 30. यहाँ तक तो सब ठीक है. But what I do now is, I now insert 10 again, and then I insert 20 again. That means that I have inserted 10, 20, 30. यहाँ तक तो सब unique है. Then I again insert 10, then again insert 20. Chalo, we'll try to print it out. Again, set also needs an iterator to print. You cannot loop it around set like that. So again, I'll set the iterator. I'll say set int. Again, the scope resolutor. Then I'll say iterator, the name of the and then the name of the editor. Let's put it as ITR. Then I'll map. So I'll say for. Okay, it's giving me the Kubernetes is giving me already. So I'll just say cout. Now since there are no value, there is no key value pair, I'll just cout ITR. And this is a pointer, so it has to be a pointer variable. Pointer variable, right? And I'll just print a space here. Awesome. I'll clear out the console. I will print the result. Right. So as you can see, right? As you can see, we are only getting unique values. Right. I've inserted 10, 20, 30, again 10 and again 20. Right. But we're only having unique values. That is the sole difference between a vector and a set. Vector, yes, you can store multiple values. In set, no, you cannot store multiple values. A very interesting use case of a set is to prevent any duplicate entry, because as we all know that sets only contain can only compensate a unique value. It is used in banks data sets, right? So that we cannot enter duplicate values against one record, one Aadhaar or one PAN, right? Whatever that is. We can use it in school name so that for a single student, for a single student. Let's suppose we have a single student. If the student name has already been entered, right, then he gets assigned, let's suppose, a class 10D, whatever the class is. I mean, just a random example, 10D. And if I want to again assign the same student, and it happens, it is a mistake, let's suppose, right, a duplicate error mistake. If we're using a set, then obviously this error won't be mistake, okay? Because I cannot have same student in two different classes, class 10C. One student will only present in one section, right, at a time. So in order to avoid these blunders, or and let's suppose a very famous question, I have been given an array 1 2 3 4 2 1. This is the array, and I'm given a question to print all the unique values, right? So ज़्यादा दिमाग नहीं लगाना है, just put it inside a set and print the values inside a set, because we know that set के अंदर it will automatically eliminate all the duplicate values, right? It will automatically eliminate all the duplicate values. That's what sets can be used for. Again, there are multiple questions that can be solved using sets. So just head over to lead code once, right? Lead code. There's apply a filter there. Filter apply kar do set ka. Once you're done with set questions, practice some 10-20 questions. Then practice maps question. Then practice vector questions. Right? So 3 STL we have covered: vector, map, set. Just go home after this class, revise all these concepts, practice some 5-10 questions of easy level. Apply a filter called as easy. I'm not expecting you to solve medium or hard level questions at this stage, but do some questions, you get some confidence in it, and you get to know exactly where to implement which STL. Okay, everyone. Any doubts? Anyone? Any doubts? Is it clear, everyone? Yes or no? No doubts. Okay. No sir. Okay. Cool. Awesome. So yes. How can I follow? I'm available on LinkedIn. If you want, you can follow me. Which iterator word is exactly object? Nihar, I didn't get your question. Which iterators? Can you reframe it? Okay, so that is all for today's class, right? Just make sure to revise the concepts, and tomorrow we'll be starting off with exception handling, and then we'll pick up a project based on the concept we have covered in 4 days, right? Iterator can also be called loop. Yeah, so iterator is just a pointer, right? Iterator is nothing. Iterator is just a pointer that will point to the beginning of the map or a set. Just a pointer. It is not a loop, right? You use loop inside. If you want to loop it, you use an iterator loop to loop it, because it is pointing at the beginning part. If you want to loop it around, you loop it using a loop. Iterator is just a pointer that is pointing to the beginning of the map or a set, right? Not a loop. You have to apply loop to make it move. Sure then. So I'll take a leave. We'll meet tomorrow, right? And keep practicing, right? Okay. Good night, everyone. Good night.